Winter can be a long season. Even though we've gained about 40 minutes of daylight since December, it's still pretty darn cold out there. Not only that, but it's a long time until spring. I think it's a cruel joke that Christmas comes at the beginning of winter. We should be singing, "In the bleak beginning of winter." We're about midwinter now, and we could use something to look forward to. I wish there was a Groundhog Day hymn or two, some midwinter festival. Maybe that's what the St. Paul Winter Carnival is about. I don't know. In their collection of essays in the book Winter, a spiritual biography of the season, the editors write, "Winter is the seat of what will come, the freeze that reminds us of the thaw, the hope pensively waiting, the moment pausing, the rhythm at its nadir, but poised to begin its upward swing. We have endured more than our share of despair these past few weeks, and I confess it feels like we're a people in exile. I look at our frozen bones and I wonder, with Ezekiel, can these bones live? Ezekiel prophesied during a tumultuous time in Israel's history, the late 6th century, when the nation was about to fall and the people would be sent into exile. In 598, the Babylonians attacked Jerusalem and deported a number of the leading citizens, including Ezekiel. And 5 years later, Ezekiel hears a call to spread more bad news to the people of Judah and the exiles. But that's not all. At the destruction of the temple, his wife dies, and he's ordered by God not to weep for her. Sounds like a long, bleak winter. In the first half of the book, Ezekiel prophesies gloom and doom and destruction for the Hebrew people. The second half gives words of hope during the exile and hope for resurrection and restoration. It's so much easier just to go to the last chapters of the book, because we need those words of hope and those needs of resurrection. We could use a word like that right now. But rushing there seems a bit more than we can handle. It doesn't ring true, going right to that restoration place. We need Lent before we can get to Easter. When we're frozen to the bone, it's all we can do just to get up and get out of bed in the morning. I know we've been there and done that. When we're frozen to the bones of our souls, even those outdoor enthusiasts who claim the spiritual reclamation that comes from a good ice fishing expedition seem simply crazy. Or those athletic types who revel in snowshoeing or skiing or snowmobiling or ice skating. Those are things to do when it's 25 degrees out, not 15 below. And yet, in spite of such dismal warnings, many of us seek out those places of comfort, of hope, of music, of beauty. We bundle up and we come to church. Ellie told me this morning how it meant so much for her to come here, even though it's so cold outside. She needed the warmth of this church family. We do it to remind us that there's another reality out there, that there's an alternative to the perpetual exile and negativity. We come here to connect with the larger story, the one of resurrection and hope. I was so proud of our church yesterday, the way we made this place into a place of welcoming and remembrance. And we surrounded it with great food and pictures and memories and support of one another. It was the church at its best. It was the church holding on to that larger story, that place where we offer hope in the midst of exile, warmth to the frozen bones. The story of Scripture is that even though we are in a valley filled with dry bones, God has not left us there comfortless. There's a story out there waiting to be woven into our very bones. We may not be able to be ready to embrace it fully, but we need to remember it's out there, calling to us, drawing us to it. Death and despair are not the final word. Cold and misery will bring forth budding flowers and boiling maple sap in just 2 months. Can we hang on? The only thing that helps when we're frozen to the bone is a memory of something better. It will get better. Just as sure as winter turns to spring, it will get better. In the meantime, we hunker down. We drink warm beverages. We put on many more layers. We bundle up. We snuggle up in prayer shawls. We surround ourselves with a community. And we tell stories. Stories that will remind us of something better. That's why we come to church in the bleak midwinter. One of the books that I enjoyed reading many years ago was Women Who Run with the Wolves. How many people have read this? How many people have read it in the last 20 years? Dr. Clarissa Nicola Estes talks about the importance of stories for our souls. She feels stories need to be heard for the auditory nerves divided into 3 pathways. One pathway hears mundane conversations. Another apprehends learning and art. And the third exists so the soul can hear guidance and gain knowledge while we're here on earth. So listen to this soul hearing, with your soul hearing, for this part of the story. She begins her book with this ancient story. There's an old woman who lives in a hidden place that everyone knows, but few have ever seen. As in the fairy tales of Eastern Europe, she seems to be waiting for lost or wandering people and seekers to come to her place. She's circumspect, often hairy, always fat, and especially wishes to evade most company. She's both a crower and a cackler, generally having more animal sounds than human ones. They say she lives among the rotten granite slopes in the Turahumara Indian Territory. They say she is buried outside Phoenix near a well. She is said to have been seen traveling south to Monte Alban in a burned-out car with the back window shot out. She's said to stand by the highway near El Paso or ride shotgun with truckers to Morelia, Mexico. Or that she has been sighted walking the market above Oaxaca with strangely formed boughs of firewood on her back. She's called by many names. La Huesera, the Bone Woman, La Tapera, the Gatherer, La Loba, Wolf Woman. The sole work of La Loba is the collecting of bones. She's known to collect and preserve especially that which is in danger of being lost to the world. Her cave is filled with bones of all manner of desert creatures, the deer, the rattlesnake, the crow, but especially is said to be wolves. She creeps and crawls and sifts through the montañas, mountains, and the arroyos, dry riverbeds, looking for wolf bones. And when she has assembled an entire skeleton, when the last bone is in its place and the beautiful white sculpture of the creature is laid out before her, she sits by the fire and thinks about what songs she will sing. And when she's sure, she stands over the criatura and raises her arms over it and sings out. This is when the rib bones and the leg bones of the wolf begin to flesh out, and the creature becomes fur. La Loba sings some more, and more of the creature comes into being. Its tail curves upward, shaggy and strong. La Loba sings some more, and the wolf creature begins to breathe. Still, La Loba sings so deeply that the floor of the desert shakes, and as she sings, the wolf opens its eyes leaps up and runs away down the canyon. And somewhere in its running, whether by speed of its running or by splashing its way into a river or by a ray of sunlight or moonlight hitting it on the right side, the wolf is suddenly transformed into a laughing woman who runs free toward the horizon. So remember, she writes, if you wander the desert and it's near sundown, and you're perhaps a little bit lost and certainly tired, that you are lucky. For La Loba may take a liking to you and show you something of the soul. Ezekiel wonders, can these dry bones live? Can God breathe life into us in the valley of our despair? And the answer is a resounding yes. God's Spirit in Hebrew is named Ruach, and it's the same word as breath, the same word as wind, Ruach. It means life force. Ruach is here even in the most bitter winter wind. When we are frozen to the bone, we have that time to be reflective, to reconsider our commitments. We take the downtime and we use it well. We use it to refocus our commitments and our priorities. I don't know about you, but every time a crisis happens, or especially when we're faced with mortality, we find ourselves looking for what is important to us. We certainly did that. Many of us who were in this room yesterday and at the funeral home and for Jan's service a week ago. What part of us is frozen and can't move? What part of us demands a little resurrection? What piece of our life might be called out to have flesh on it and to be changed and resurrected? Why not use this midwinter frozen cocooning time to make lists of our priorities? Why not reevaluate the way we spend our time and our energy? Maybe we need to breathe a little bit of life-giving ruach into those dormant places. Point is, don't let the valley of the dry bones, the frozen bones, be the place where we stay all the time. Prophesy to the bones, says God to Ezekiel, and God will supply the ruach. Sing to the bones, for music brings life. That must be why we sing in church. But don't let the rattle of the bones be the only sound. Don't let winter's bitter bite be the only memory. Don't let death and despair be the last word. Ruach is here, waiting in the wings, waiting with La Loba, waiting to sing us home, waiting to show us an even better way and a way out of the valley, waiting to help us put flesh on these dry bones, and always there to point us to the great resurrected place of hope. Thanks be to God